Everybody ready? Okay, Shannon, if you'd like to tell the board, on those, the two people that are going first.
Yeah. So we have two properties where the property owner won't be here, but we have a recommendation. We'll take care of those right now. The first one is David Allard. The second one is the Menards property. But Trevor has a recommendation on David Allard's.
Thank you, Shannon. Trevor?
Hi, Trevor Abernathy with the Equalization Office. I inspected this property with the owner inside and out and have a recommendation to change the land to 51,900, structures to 74,900 for a total of 126,800, and he is in agreement.
Okay, do you have a motion?
I'd make a motion.
Motion by Drews,
Second.
second by Ross Connect. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
Okay, and then Rod is the Menards property, which is Menards and the former Marilat property. There's multiple parcels here.
Okay,
So my recommendation is to just leave the value that the Director of Equalization had. And really just on all the parcels, there's land parcels mixed with their retail store and then the old, what's now called Dakota Panel. But we got an email last night saying that they were not going to go ahead with the appeal at county level, so.
okay. Deb, can you get those numbers from, okay, so we can make them all in one, Rod?
I think so.
Okay, so do we have a motion board on all of five appeals?
Move to approve the assessor's value on all 7 property,
Five,
5
Yeah,
property.
there's 5.
yes, sir. We had a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Motion by DeSanto, second by Drews. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Rod.
Okay, and then we've got a couple of property owners that are here, the first one being John Jordan.
Okay, John Jordan and Joe, if you would like to go first, and then John Jordan, we'll have you speak after Mr. Joe speaks.
Madam Chair, could we hand out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. There aren't any pictures on the property cards, so.
Joe, would you like to do one at a time? Is that okay? Or how would you like to do this?
Here's a.
Thank you.
This is just the parcels,
Okay,
a map of the parcels,
nice.
and the request by Mr. Jordan to go to the 2012 assessment.
And I've listed the 2012 numbers on my front sheet, so you have that to look at initially.
Did you give that to Joe, sir?
Yes, he has a copy, and we've just exchanged
Thank
information.
you, sir.
So, this is on the map here. Let me get to. These are the on the overhead is the area near Wasta where the properties that we're going to be talking about are. There are 7 of them. I think that depending on what you decide to do, that we can do all 7 of them at one time. My recommendation is that we do no change on all of these parcels, that we leave them with the assessed value. As you know, agricultural land is valued, set by state statute. The state legislature has set forth how we are to value agricultural land. All land classified as agricultural is assessed the same countywide. These parcels of land are assessed the same as every other parcel in the county. The acreage that we're considering of all 7 parcels is 804.81 acres. During the conversations that Mr. Jordan and I have had prior to today, he had requested sales from November of 2016 to March of 2019 is what I provided. Of the sales that our office considered to be good sales, there's only 3 out of those 226 good sales that where the sale price per acre was lower than the assessed value. The median value for our assessed properties is $229 per acre. The median per acre for the sales is $1,099. Our assessed value per acre on agricultural land is 80% lower than what I see in sales. I completed in 2016 and 2017 an unaccompanied visit of these parcels. I drove around them and on them and looked at them, and I did not see where any of the property soils needed to be adjusted. Per the emails that I had with Mr. Jordan, I suggested that we go look at the parcels, but we did not go out there this year to look at them. The assessed value on all these properties is $301 per acre. If we were to use a sale price, the properties in this area of the county generally sell for around $450 to $525. So the market value could be around $500 per acre. That would be an assessed value of around $400 and $2,000 instead of the $260 that we have on it. The request for the 2012 assessed value would bring the value in at $150,500. The other issue that may come up is drought. And do we adjust for drought? Do we take care of that? But we do use the 8-year Olympic average that is set forth by the legislature. And based on that, it does take into account drought by the amount of bushels and the amount of acres that are used in those years that are drought years. For the South Dakota legislature has legislated how agricultural land is assessed and valued in the counties of South Dakota. In Pennington County, we follow that legislation. If you want the assessed value for agricultural land to be done differently, you need to take that to the legislature. Because these parcels are valued the same as all other parcels in the county, I'm recommending no change on all parcels in this appeal.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Jordan, please.
Just a reminder that the sales value has no bearing on the actual assessment, and I would not agree that the number of sales and whether they're valid or not. There's many items such as the proximity to a hard surfaced road, the recreational value for hunting. I don't know that we've got a valid point there, but anyway, we'll start with mine. First page is the sheet which I've requested. What you'll notice about our and again, usually I think the last time I was here, they remind you that I'm also part of a group in other counties. We're a multi-generational, multi-location ranching operation in western South Dakota. I'm the oldest guy in the crowd. The guy behind me that handed out's number 5, 6 is on the ground. For the most part, they run the operation, and I don't know what it is. They haven't figured out what I do for a living. So we'll start out, page 2 is where Pennington County Board of Commissioners declared 2017 as a drought disaster for Pennington County. The 3 drought disaster years in our Olympic average are 2012, 2016, and 2017. You'll see those numbers come up in subsequent handouts. If you go to page 3, you will notice that what we have, or I guess the third, is where Pennington County Board of Commissioners said that the Farm Service Agency has identified hay crop loss in Pennington County of over 95% and grazing losses between 80 and 90%, in addition to the abnormally early cattle sales. The point I'm trying to make at this point is what you're using is called Farm Service Agency data, okay? The significance here comes within the Department of Revenue model. Let me just take a minute to kind of explain what Farm Service Agency. Crop fields are individually identified by farm and field number. They are the fields that are actual use crop ground. These fields are insurable, verified, and mapped. This is the actual cropland for which should be used for crop ground taxation. We presently, under the Department of Revenue plan, don't use FSA fields. They use another method. Again, going back to the FSA data was then, so you made that determination, I believe, in July 11th of 2017. What actually happens in the agricultural world is that following the production season, crop adjusters come out and they survey the actual FSA crop fields and they make a determination. What ended up happening is that they actually zeroed out the grass hay and they stayed with the 95% of grazing loss. So again, I want to make this clear. The hay production was 0 and the grazing was 5%. That's what we had in 17. 17 followed 16. 16 was a drought disaster year. 17 was a drought disaster year. The plants can't recover fast enough. And so almost automatically it sets you up for 18 to be not one of your best years. The problem, and I before I state this, I want to make sure that everyone understands the process that we have in place right now would work perfectly fine if it wasn't gamed. The Department of Revenue would, that whole model would work if you didn't game it, if you used the actual numbers and instead of, well, you can make your own opinion here. This whole process is not new to Pennington County. It's actually an issue throughout the United States. So I'd like to just read you this statement. In addition, when farmers report their yields, criminal liability attaches. Farmers who fraudulently report their crop yields to FSA can be and often are charged with a crime. There is no requirement to fill out the yield report for the NAS data survey. That's what Department of Revenue uses. And there is no criminal penalty for filling in false numbers. I may repeat that in the future. The next sheet will say Pennington County 2019 assessment year production information. And so what you're looking at here is the data that's provided. And I don't know how this specific county, but usually it's sent from the Department of Revenue. Some of it's massaged somewhat, some's not. In my opinion, if you read the statutes, the Director of Equalization has a responsibility here to review and make sure that this data is correct. If you go down to the 2017 data and the 2016 data, you'll notice that we've increased the revenue per acre from $73.37 to $146.91. So we've gone from a D4 drought year in 2016 to a D4 drought year in 2017, and we've, essentially doubled our income. This, again, at a time when the commission has declared it a drought disaster area. In my opinion, this is an error. And in my opinion, if you read the statutes, you have a responsibility to review it. If we go then to the 2019 year production information, crop information, you'll start to see some trends. It starts at 2,000 at the top and goes down 8614 down to 14691. You'll notice that once the Department of Revenue started utilizing this data for taxation purposes, there are a lot of awful different numbers than what they used to be. That's had an impact on the Olympic average, and if the Olympic average, again, remembering that 2012, 2016, and 2017, which are currently in our present Olympic average, we're actually using the drought disaster numbers, our Olympic average would be considerably less. We've tried a number of times to try to put a number on that. Our selection of the 2012 132.48 is more than reasonable, in my opinion. Okay, adjacent counties have given deductions for both 2016 and 2017 for drought, and also for the some soils issues. The last two sheets come from the Eggland Task Force. Identified that there could be a problem with the system that's being used. And so they hired Dr. Elliott to study the ag taxation system. The colored sheet, well, actually you don't have one. The one that says expected change in ag assessments if there was a switch to most probable, they used to call it highest and best use. They changed it when they saw the things weren't coming out. Kind of shows the difference in the various counties. So the blue represents the east, and where you see a negative in Pennington County, a minus 33%, that's how much our taxation should go down if you're using this method, which in some regards is the method you're supposed to be using. But again, in my opinion, it's being gamed. The final sheet, which does have Pennington County at the bottom and Moody at the top, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is one that you need to study, but essentially, the crop revenue, which the Department of Revenue is estimating and then using only a 35%, is supposed to represent the rent that this land would rent for. So if you look down in Pennington County, the landlord share is up over $60, but the actual rent, okay, is down in the $30 bracket. So those two lines should converge just as they do in Moody County, and under an ideal scenario, they would converge. That's the quality control that would be needed to see if the system's working right.
So, Mr. Jordan, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
So-
in fact, I'm done. You can.
Okay, you said there's a method there's already a method, and there's supposed to be one we're using. So by state law, we're using the method we're supposed to use, but you
Yes.
believe that the state law is not using the right method, and the law
No,
hasn't changed?
I don't believe, no. Good question. I believe the information that's being presented and introduced into the model, the Department of Revenue model, is grossly in error.
Okay, but by law, Joe, you're using the method that we're supposed to be using, and by state law, you are following that method.
Yes, I am.
And are you listening to Mr. Jordan and what he's saying? Do you take any of that into account?
What part of what he has been talking about is highest and best use versus probable use versus actual use. There is many debates as to what is the right way to value agricultural land. Currently, in the state of South Dakota, the tables that we use are based on highest and best use, which we get from the school in Brookings and through the Department of Revenue, which the school in Brookings, that's legislated, we have to use them. And the Department of Revenue recommends and gives us guidelines on how we are to function and make these values. One of the things that has happened over the past few years is that many people have wanted to go to actual use. So we would look at this property and we see that part of it's cropped, we see that part of it's grass, so then we would change those areas to those things, which is fine if that's what we want to do, but it's not how it's set up at this time. Another option that we are considering is probable use. And actually, in Pennington County and a number of the counties in the state, we'll be doing a study with the Department of Revenue this summer to look at probable use and what that will do with values and if it makes them better or worse or what it will do. And so I'm looking forward to being a part of that study so that we can make our land values for agricultural properties better.
So Joe, basically, we're using highest and best use, and Mr. Jordan is saying, basically, what we can use the land for and what we should be taxed for because of that.
No,
That's what I'm getting.
no. The conversation gets skewed between highest and best use and actual use. The highest and best, or actual use comes back to the fact that the crop rated soils
Yes.
are
Good.
misidentified and
Yes.
miscategorized,
Right.
classified. Okay, so we need it. So let's pull that part out of the argument. The fact that the soil surveys to the west, which were done to a specification that didn't really matter because we don't farm anyway, so they didn't care, and it's a whole separate subject. Okay, the actual use that accompanies the misidentified and misclassified soils, because there's no way now with this whole big system, how do you determine, and we're kind of getting off subject, how do you determine now with misclassified and misidentified soils, how do you ever determine which the right soils are? So you've got to go to the person that's actually running the land and assume that he's trying to do the best he can.
Yes.
I apologize for taking off.
No, you're
Okay,
good
the
because
highest and best use, which Joe's, I guess, possibly talking about, that study's already been done by Mr. Elliott, and you're looking at the data.
right.
Okay, you're looking at that study's already been done. Okay,
That
and
study's-
it's problematic. There's no question that.
Mr. Jordan,
but-
I'm in agreement with you.
Okay.
But Joe is just doing what he's supposed to do by state law, and if
But
I could
but
do.
Joe,
But if I could do what you're saying, which I understand, but the law hasn't changed to that study and to what's happening. So you'd like Pennington County to do something different than basically what state law is right now,
no, I think Joe or the director of equalization
right?
could have made a deduct for both the drought, and he also could make adjustments for class 4 soils.
Okay,
And I base that on a county that's already done that,
yeah,
and it's already been accepted by the Department of Revenue.
okay, thank you.
So you see my point?
Yes,
That
sir.
we've already gone over this bridge.
Yes, sir. Any questions from the board?
So, Mr. Jordan, is that Moody County then that you're
Meade.
referring to?
Meade County.
Meade County has done that.
They've
Okay,
been doing it for a while.
okay. Joe,
Yes.
do you have the authority to take into consideration drought?
The drought is already been
Figured into that 8-year,
into the 8-year Olympic
Okay.
average. The adjustments are made with that are brought in with the bushels they use. They're taking that in there with the 8-year Olympic average.
Madam Chair.
May I address the
Hold
question?
on just a sec. Ross Connect?
Joe, you said there's going to be some type of a get-together this summer trying to address John's concerns in Pier?
Well, that's correct. In Pennington County, I'll have to go in and touch every single agricultural property and recalculate what the value would be as probable use. That probable use information is going to be coming from the school in Brookings, and then is going to the Department of Revenue in Pierre, and they will be looking at that information.
So would an individual like John have the opportunity to attend something like that so they can actually get input from people that are feeling the impact?
I would certainly think that he would have the opportunity to talk with the Department of Revenue and visit with him and be a part of it however he might want.
John, I've appraised real estate for quite a few years, but I'm this isn't really my expertise, but I did meet with Joe a little bit and we went over some of the parameters. And one of the things that he pointed out is that I do know a little bit about the soil maps and soil productivity, but when they do those maps, I think it's done from an aerial and you got
28,000 square feet, 28,000
so,
feet above.
I think they might not be dialing it in as accurately as possible, but
I've resurveyed them,
so
drilled the holes, I've bored.
anyhow, the maps pretty much dictate what Joe's got, the soil type that we got to work with, and then the state says do not change the original soil classification, soil rating, so they're telling Joe, they're basically, if I read it right, the state's saying this is what you can do and what you can't do, but when we get to a soil type that's got issues, it's my understanding that he does have the latitude to make a determination of the quality of that particular soil type.
And if I can answer that, whichever question, they've already identified, Meade County derated $100 million worth of soils this last year, class 4 soils. We're beyond, the study's been done. The only reason you don't see me every year is because I'm somewhere else. Okay, so the class 4, you're absolutely right, it's impossible to identify, and then it's impossible to classify, and that's why you have that group of people that just want to go with actual use, because we're never going to get it right. Okay, but they still have the capability and the legal ability to make adjustments to those soils. You could adjust class 4 soils just like other counties have. You just haven't done it. They're within the law, and you would be within the law.
Okay, Mr. Jordan, hold on just a sec. Shannon, you have something to share with us?
Yeah, okay, so I want to go back just a little bit and maybe introduce something that I could have early on. We were talking about this highest and best use and probable use and actual use thing, and that's been an argument since this productivity assessment has been in place. The legislature, when they created this productivity valuation, created an ag task force to meet 3 times a year, every year, to look at changes that might need to be made. And there's been legislation every year over ag assessments. The public is welcome to attend those ag task force meetings, and I think Mr. Jordan has, at least sometimes.
I'm there at everyone.
And Joe is frequently there as well. We keep up on what's going on. There is a movement that we see coming to go to this most probable use. And we want to step back a little bit and say, maybe personally we see some good in this, but we have to follow the law that's written right now. But as Joe just mentioned, Pennington County has volunteered to be a test site for some numbers that are coming out of the university. And it'll be quite a bit of work because we will have to take the numbers they give us and recalculate every ag parcel and then submit that to, this is what it will do in Pennington County. And we're not going to be the only test site. There's going to be several counties that are going to do this, but we volunteered. We're one of the larger ones, and we're West River. We're one of the counties they look for. So the commission knows we are participating in the what-if analysis, and I sort of think that there's going to be some changes from it. I think so. But at present, that's not the law.
Okay.
We will be a test site working on it. And Mr. Jordan won't be a part of that test run, but it'll all go to that ag task force, and those results will be there, and he'll be there, we'll be there, and a lot of people throughout the state.
Thank you, Shannon. Board, do you have discussion for Mr. Jordan?
I guess I got one question, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Shannon.
When we made this proclamation
Yes.
in 2017,
Yes.
how did that benefit West River farmers and ranchers? And then how did it benefit them financially?
Well, I would assume that the county qualified for different programs. If you look at the, is it sheet 1? It kind of starts to explain the different things. So once you've been declared just like a tornado disaster, a drought's the same level of disaster as anything else. So there are different programs that become available.
So did the
Federal
ranchers,
program.
I guess
I
what my
think where he's going, if I could say, did any of the ranchers or farmers benefit? Did they get cash back or anything for drought or any grants and stuff? I think they
yeah,
did.
Well, I would say in terms of grants, okay, there was a enormous amount of water hauling that had to occur,
Right.
okay, to make it through. And so in our particular case, at this particular property, and Joe can go down and verify it, there's a tank that I believe we got some cost share. I'm going to say maybe 25%. And there's a pipe that we got some cost share that we had to install, and I think it was 50%.
But there wasn't any other subsidies for drought. I always thought there was
Well,
some type of subsidies from
you
the
asked about a
state.
grant, okay? Now we'll go on to the next level.
Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
so if you have catastrophic insurance, which we carry catastrophic insurance. If that pays at 50% level, if you would have used the numbers that you put here, you should have never been in a drought. Okay, you used 5%, the tea yield roughly in Pennington County is roughly a ton per acre. And let's use for sake of discussion that the hay sells for, we'll make the math simple, $100 a ton, it's lower. So 5% of $100 would be $5. Do you see what I'm getting at? Okay, so, but you said instead of making $5, you voted that we make $146.91 an acre. There's a big difference between $5 an acre and, well, actually zero. They zeroed the hay out. So we made zero and we're taxed on 146.91. I realize I'm not answering your question, but I'm not sure you're seeing my point. Yes, you do qualify for some insurance. In the past, it used to pay the taxes. That's kind of how you always figured. It doesn't pay the taxes anymore.
Okay.
You
I
see-
think Mr. DeSanto had
Oh,
something.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Commissioner
mean to
DeSanto
sidetrack.
to
So
interrupt
you do qualify, so you've got some grant money, you have the cat, it's called cat coverage.
Right. And there are years, I'm pretty familiar with agriculture, there are years when you have much better performance than the average as well.
And that's in the Olympic average. Yes, I would agree. Now, I won't agree with the numbers, and to make it kind of this simple, you have a combination of irrigation and non-irrigation in Pennington County. In my opinion, what we're seeing here is we're seeing some irrigated land bleed over. There are only two counties in the state that I know of which classify their irrigated and non-irrigated. Pennington County, nor Meade County are one of them. So
Is that correct, Joe? We do not determine between irrigated and non-irrigated on our Olympic average?
I think Joe's looking.
Answer that, Joe.
Shannon?
The production numbers that Ag Statistics Service collects are non-irrigated. What Mr. Jordan is saying is maybe somebody is reporting something that's irrigated in there, but they're supposed to be non-irrigated productions, and that's what our assessment's based on. There's always arguments about the quality of the data Ag Statistics Service is collecting, but that argument's been going on for years, and the university says our data is good. From our perspective, it's the only data we've got, and it's what the legislature says we have to use.
May I respond?
Yes.
SDSU doesn't exactly say the data's good because they just issued a report. You have the results of it. The same overseer, South Dakota State University, is the one that did the study, Dr. Elliott. That's why there's a problem here. And I'm not asking you to look and face that problem. I'm saying that the law says the director of equalization has some responsibility to review during a drought year the FSA data and can make an adjustment based on that. That's what I'm saying the law says. And I'm saying other counties have done this.
Okay, Joe.
I'm not saying you can't. That's not my argument.
Okay, so Mr. Jordan has made his case. Joe has made his case. Do we have a determination on, do we want to go parcel by parcel on this properties board? Or do you want to do them all in one?
I don't think it's necessary to go parcel by parcel.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I do not have a motion at this time.
We need a motion.
How was the,
Discussion?
have more discussion.
Very
How was
good.
the crop in 2018?
I'm gonna call it about a 3/4 of average. So instead of a ton an acre, I'd call it 3/4 of a ton an acre.
So we have a turnaround.
Well, you have a turnaround, but remember the T yield averages. If you just want to assess me at the T yield, I'm fine with that and quit the Olympic average. But the point is, when you take the plant and it's faced with drought in 16, then it's faced with drought in 17. It doesn't just blossom back, and it has no method.
I understand that,
Okay,
John.
I didn't mean to.
I'm trying to wrap my head around how we can help you. I've also pointed out that there's been some help, and we all know that all of the help that ranchers and farmers get comes out of the taxpayer's pocket, spread amongst everybody. And then when we get an assessor that goes out and assesses based on the rules and laws that he's given, the parameters that he's given to work with, and then he brings them to us. We want to help the rancher and the farmer without a doubt. That's the main income of the state is through that, and we don't want people going out of business and tax them out of business. But that makes it more. It's difficult to decide where do we go, how far do we go, because there's people that are sitting in homes that aren't farmers and ranchers that are going, why are my taxes going up? They don't understand that their taxes are going up to help farmers and ranchers.
I don't agree. So you're saying, well, I totally don't agree.
Through subsidies.
Okay, guys, I'm going to make a motion.
I don't agree. The rancher doesn't receive any.
Mr. Jordan, I'm going to make a motion to go with Joe's assessment on these properties. That's my motion. Is there a second? No change?
I'll second.
Second, motion made by Hadcock, second by LaCroy. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries with 1 no from Commissioner DeSanto. Mr. Jordan, I'm hoping next year if we can get a little bit different from legislature and to follow those laws, and hopefully that'll give you some change there.
You don't quite understand the situation. I think we'll be meeting again,
Okay,
the group.
thank you, sir. You have a good day, sir.
H&K Ranch is here,
Okay,
but I think Joe just has a recommendation.
okay.
And if I'm right, you don't want to speak? Okay.
He wanted to see what we do. So I do have a recommendation
Okay.
for H&K Ranch. There's 2 parcels.
Okay,
The first one is 12321. This parcel, the assessed value was 301,000. The local board removed the buildings on that and took the value to just the land at 295,500. I went out to the property and looked at these buildings. These are old grain bins that have rusted bottoms. So I agree with the value that the local board had, and so I'm recommending that you uphold that value of,
the 295.
295.5,
Okay,
make that motion.
been a motion by Drews. Second by LaCroy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Parcel 12328, Joe?
one second.
Okay,
Some confusion on the numbers.
all right. we need a correction, Deb, did you say? No, we're good? Okay.
That's right.
12328, sir.
This parcel is where the homestead is of H&K Ranch.
Okay.
There are 3 homes on this parcel. And so I went out and did a walkthrough through all of the homes. And based on the information that I gathered while I was there, I am recommending that we assess all of the non-agricultural buildings on that property at $126,900.
Okay,
The land at $112,900. The agricultural buildings at $27,400,
okay,
and they do qualify for the $10,000 exemption, which brings their value to $257,200.
and they're good with this?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion?
Second.
Okay, who mumbled?
Motion, second.
Okay, sorry, guys. Y'all were saying it at, 3 of you guys were saying it at the same time. Motion by LaCroix, second by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
The next property is Glenn Lochner. Mr. Lochner has a letter he says he'd like to read, so maybe let him read his letter and then Joe speak.
Okay.
And then we have another property that he said he'd come in at 2:00 and I'll watch for him.
Okay.
How many properties do we have here for Lackner?
Thank you. Just the one. I think the second one is a sub-question on the boundary lines, isn't there, where
Okay.
the
So Joe,
government lot starts and where it quits.
There's actually the 2 parcels. One has a house on it, and the other one has some other buildings
But
on it.
they split my homestead apart so that I have 2 different parcels with buildings supposedly.
so your agreement on one property or?
No,
or
I'm not
both?
necessarily agree. I think we need to iron out where the government lots, the lots are government lots across my baseline behind my house. Okay, I split one parcel off of one government lot so it wouldn't have to be surveyed. I split it off of that one. And he maintains, or the county maintains, that the line cuts through a corner of my property, so therefore there's a farm property, a farm building, and 3 grain bins on the other government lot. So I'm appealing what the value is on my house is basically what I'm appealing.
Okay, and you go ahead and read your letter, sir.
Okay, the question that I spent a little time in Uncle Sam's company that you fought to save your hide. Well, now I'm fighting to save my home.
Okay.
Our 2019 taxes due list our home at $30,533 this year. Last year, this year is the house is at 68,800 on or 129% increase. A coat of paint 3 years ago on a metal roof, about 6 years ago was for the hail ruined or asphalt roof is the only improvement that's been on that thing. It has a partial basement and 20% of an old house from 1942 that my father put up. Total 1,300 square feet. The balance from about 1970, I built that on. It needs 7 new windows right now, and I have two floor levels in that house. And so you need to watch if you walk from one end of the house to the other, because you're either going to step up or step down. It's just not just an old 2-piece put together. The inside is fixed up nice. Yes, it's fixed up nice. But the cabinets, like in the kitchen and stuff, are handmade homemade by me, and it's all plywood. There isn't any fancy ones out of the lumber company. They're all the same way with the ones in the bathroom. We don't have rural water or the estimated $20,000 to $22,000 to get it to our house. In the March blizzard, our submersible cut out, removing 3 to 4 foot of snow over getting the guy out to fix it would cost $455. Just the switch went out. Also, we didn't get. I noticed on that it was brought up there that we don't have the 10,000 deduction for our ag buildings. That's not on there, which I think I'm entitled to. I've been on that place for 70 years. I was born and raised on it. And what we did was, what we need is what we did receive was a notice from Golden West that the last part of February, that in the first part of March, that by the 1st of April, we would lose our landline to our phone. We wouldn't have that because we didn't allow them at the time to go into our house because of the mess they made the last time they went in. But the 1st of March, they told us that we would, 1st of April, we would lose our landline, so we wouldn't have a landline. And I am my wife is reluctant to lose the landline, and so am I, because of the other type of phones aren't dependable. We got 13 miles from a fire department, 13 miles from an ambulance, 13 miles from a school, and a hell of a long ways from the hospital. And I just think that I need an adjustment on the value on that house. I think it's far over and above what that house is worth.
Thank you, Mr. Lackner.
I told them at the time, I asked for the time to roll it back to hold it at the present
68.8
level, and I told John I would negotiate for it, or because I realized the taxes don't stay the same all the time; they raise every year, and after listening to that guy with the ag land and the amount that I went through about the battling on the ag land, I know that South Dakota and this county has the poorest damn system for an ag land that's possible, and they've studied it to death. Every year there's a study going on for what to do about it, and every year it's the same damn thing because they can't figure it out.
Okay. Does
So
anybody have any
I
questions for
sympathize with
Mr. Lackner?
Question for Joe. Joe, why no ag deduction? Yep.
The local board, how they set up their recommendation of going to 42,500, they didn't include that within the thing. I would recommend that we give them the exemption. It wouldn't be $10,000. It would be $3,500.
Is that for the? Oh, you mean for the ag buildings, or?
The local board granted it.
Okay.
So Joe,
He did get it.
what
And so
parcel?
that brought it to the 42.5.
So Joe, what parcel are you talking about, and what's the total?
Okay, parcel 68877.
Okay, and the value is, your assessment is,
Land at 8,400.
okay,
Agricultural buildings at 3,500
okay,
with that same exemption.
okay,
And the house at 53,200.
okay, and total?
61,600.
6167?
600.
600, okay. Do we have a motion or discussion?
I would like to ask Joe a question here.
Hold on just a sec,
Because
Mr.
I
Lack,
have
hold
a-
on, hold
I
on,
have
sir. Hold on, sir. Do we have a motion or discussion from the board? Nothing? Okay. Mr. Lackner, sir. Your turn.
Yes, sorry.
You're okay.
I have a listing here from the county with the owner occupied 30,533, and this is from last year. Now, what paper is this? Is this one that should be out or I shouldn't have or something?
This is the tax bill for 2018. This was the assessed value before our reappraisal of all agriculturally improved properties, which we did in 2018.
Did you understand that, sir?
Pardon?
Did you understand what Joe just said to you?
Not really, no, because I have the paper in my hand and and it says owner occupied, and I got this thing in hell, the date on it.
It would have been the last part of December, and that's your tax bill with taxable
Yeah,
value on it?
okay, it is, but why the hell did my house say occupied at 30,000 and then you just got through saying what, 42,000 or?
This is a taxable value that's less than the assessed value. And I can explain that when they're done talking the assessed values here, I can go over that with you.
I didn't know this.
Okay. So, board, do we have a motion or more discussion?
A little more discussion. I might have got lost here somewhere, but
You're okay.
it
That
seems
leaves
like,
the house, what does that leave
Hold
the
on,
house
sir.
at?
Hold on, sir.
it
Ross
seems
Connect?
like what I'm reading, the home was assessed at 68.8,
Correct.
and now there's been a reduction.
Yes,
53-2.
after my walkthrough, I feel that the house is dated, and that there were reasons that the value that we had on the house at 68,800 was higher than it should have been.
So there has been some consideration with regard to the quality of the house, so
Quality of the house.
just wanted to
condition.
make sure that.
Yes.
Because I thought that was in order, but it's already been taken care of. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't overstepping my boundaries.
So he's got 8,400 on the land, right? 3,500 deduction for ag and 53.2 on the house, which comes to 61.6. That'd be my motion.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
so Joe, it went from 68.8 on the house to 30,600, is that what I'm understanding?
No.
53.2.
Correct. That
For total.
30,600 was the recommendation of the local board.
Okay.
And Joe understands that, right? He understands he's
For
getting a
lack of-
reduction?
Yes, excuse me.
You understand we're lowering it?
Yes, I know you're lowering it, but I don't think you're lowering it enough. Put it that way. I'll be honest with you.
Joe, the total on that would
It's
be
an old house,
61.6
and I
then?
tell you what,
Yes, Gary.
Yes, that's correct.
if I was moved off that place to prevent paying taxes on it, I'd burn the damn thing to the ground.
Okay, we do have a motion. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
If I was
Shannon.
in it, it'd be called
You'll
unoccupied.
let him know that that's not what he's getting. Okay.
Will you show him that? Do we have another one from Lackner?
Oh, yeah. So
Oh, do we?
the other parcel that he has is 68878,
Okay.
which on the map is the parcel to the left side of the screen.
Okay,
And that's, has some land and then these other buildings, which when the property was split, those other buildings went onto the other side. So after being out there with him, I'm recommending that we keep the land at 261,000. The local board had removed the agricultural buildings completely. I recommend that we add 4,300 back in
okay,
for the Quonset and the tool shed and one of the grain bins.
okay,
And that will bring the value to 265,300.
okay. Mr. Lackner, do you have any say on that property, sir?
Pardon?
Would you like to speak on that property now?
No,
Okay,
I'll make a
So-
motion that we accept the recommendation.
and there's been a motion and a
Second.
second by DeSanto. Drews is the first, DeSanto is the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Thank you for your time today, sir. Shannon's going to meet with you so you can,
I appreciate the time to speak, so.
thank you, sir.
And thank you for serving our country, sir.
Amen to that.
Like I said, they wanted my hide, and you want my home.
We don't want your home.
We have one more property owner, but we're expecting him at 2 o'clock, so
Okay.
maybe he didn't come early. I will talk to Mr. Lochner.
Okay, 5-minute break.
Sure.
Motion by DeSanto, second by Drews. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed,
Aye.
motion carries. Okay, guys. 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Shannon?
Computer Ranches is the last one we got, and they're here.
Okay.
At least Brian.
Computer Ranch.
Hopefully, we don't have to listen to Pat Hall.
We want to get done by 5. Pat, we want to get done by 5, so we're going to let Brian speak.
Don't be afraid of the facts.
I gave you.
Thank you for allowing me to come in front of you today. I want to thank Joe, too, for taking the time to go out there and look at it. Despite the fact that I might thank you, just because I don't agree with you, don't take it personal, right? And I won't either.
All right.
Brian, you've been hanging around Pat too long.
Well, hopefully that's a good thing.
Yes.
Pat and I have a place out at Caputa. And we're in here because a big chunk of the south part of that ranch is pasture, always has been, always will be. We've talked with the Pennington County NRCS. Their recommendation is that we should not farm these pieces that are being classified as cropland. We've also had Arvid Melland, and I brought copies of a letter that he wrote for us. Arvid went out and inspected the land, wrote us an opinion. Arvid is a gentleman that's soil surveyed over 1.5 million acres of ground, and he gave us his opinion that this land is rangeland and should always stay rangeland. Now, I brought copies.
Brian, a quick question.
Yes, sir.
We have several different parcel numbers here, but they're all the same ranch, is that,
Yes.
okay.
So when you relate to the different areas, Brian, tell us what parcels you're talking about, if you would, sir.
It's a challenge, but it's easier visually. And I brought a map that will make this simpler, I believe.
Okay,
We hand these out.
you got a couple handouts? Thank you, Joe. I don't know if that makes it easier.
Basically, the blue is considered a Kyle clay, and it has a soil rating of 60-something.
Okay.
That blue soil is mixed within all this stuff you see here is a pasture out south of Caputa. Because the Kyle clay has a 60 crop productivity rating, it's being called cropland from our perspective, even though it's rangeland, always has been. NRCS wants it always to stay that way. So the reason we're in here is basically we want this, despite the fact that it's better quality pasture land with that Kyle clay, to be called pasture. And one of the laws, when we looked this up, South Dakota Codified Law 10-6-33-1 has basically 5 characteristics. It says the capacity of the land shall be determined based on the location, size, soil survey, terrain, topography of the land, including climate, accessibility, and surface conditions. So we went out there, I guess, with an open mind with Arvid and said, okay, if we wanted to farm this, how do we do this? These long, narrow blue strips. And he said, one, the topsoil is so shallow in some of those spots, you would be in trouble with the NRCS, and you would lose your potential to have federal crop insurance. He said, Brian, I would counsel you against that. He says that in his letter. He goes through 6 or 7 reasons. The clay type soil is not suitable for farming. It's considered highly erodible, basically for wind.
Brian, did you have that letter?
Yes,
Are you going to hand that to us, sir?
yes.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Okay.
Go ahead, Brian, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, we've stated our case. The law requires that consideration be given to other factors besides soil type. And to Pat and I's notion, what this is being based on is the soil type without the consideration for slope, topsoil depth, whether the soil's suitable for farming, the fact that we'd have to fence out these long, narrow pieces if we wanted to do it, which would be cost prohibitive. Then we would have water issues because the livestock in the non-blue areas wouldn't be able to get to those tanks. I mean, it's supposed to be rangeland. Arvid said it. The NRCS in Pennington County said it, so we're here asking for it to be considered rangeland instead of cropland from a tax standpoint.
Okay. Anything else, Brian?
Any questions?
Can we do that legally?
Let's go to Joe and then questions. Joe?
So, Brandon and I did go out to the property and we spent some time there looking at the different aspects of it and where the Kyle soils are. And based on the information that I gathered from that, as well as looking at aerial photographs and the USGS contours, I do have a couple of recommendations. Again, when we're making these adjustments to this land, it is to crop-rated soil. And so the adjustment would be a percentage of the difference between the crop rating and the pasture rating. We do not change the crop to non-crop. We keep it as crop, but we just make that minor adjustment. Again, all agricultural land is assessed the same. And it's as any other parcel. The acreage that we're considering today is 3,306 acres. And as I said, I completed the site visit with Mr. Hammerbeck. The difficulty comes in for my office and for me is how do I figure out whether or not to apply an adjustment to any land at all. And after being with Mr. Hammerbeck on the property and on the handout that I gave out, there are a couple of different parcels that I've added. This is yours, but
Sorry.
and it has the parcel and it has the USGS contours as well as the soil types. So I went through and I looked at it, and those areas that were more flat, that weren't steep because of the slope, and or had the draws in it, I consider those to be good, and so I don't want to make an adjustment on those parts of it.
So
So
you, Joe, you have 24 properties, am I
12.
correct? What,
There's 12.
on this, there's,
Oh, there's 24 in the Caputa
oh, but,
Ranch H&H
only 12 are
Land
his.
Company, but there's only 12 being appealed.
okay, thank you.
So, anyway, it's tough. As Mr. Hammerbeck said, that the Kyle soils per our table 1 are all crop rated soils. They are that 4 level. There's levels of soil 1 through 8. 1 is the best, 8's worst. These are 4s. They're right in the middle. They could go either way. But according to the highest and best use from the Department of Revenue, they are considered to be crop-rated soils. Within that, they do take into account that there's slope on different different parts of it, and that they're either stony, sandy, or erodible. They do take all those things into account. So after being on the property, I do have some recommendations.
Okay,
So I'll go through those.
does everybody have those?
That's on this sheet?
Is this the same
All
sheet,
of them?
Joe? Is this the new recommendation, Joe, that we have?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody has that in their packet?
No.
Yeah.
Do you need to,
No, let's see.
should have it in
Got it?
your equalization packet?
Is it in amongst this?
No,
It's in with,
Like the
remember your equalization
memo.
packets here? Yep,
I got it.
okay.
I got one.
I'll,
Deb doesn't.
I'll share with,
So, Madam Chair, can I speak just for a minute?
let's have his recommendations, if that's okay, Commissioner? Joe?
So for parcel 11970, I'm recommending no change.
Okay,
For parcel 11971, I'm recommending no change. For parcel 11972, my recommendation is 57,200. For parcel 11975, my recommendation is 10,800. For parcel 11976, my recommendation is 216,800. For parcel 11996, my recommendation is 146,000.
Round in there, 100, 296, 300.
Oh, okay. So then for 13415, the land value would be 61,800 for a total with the structures of 296,300.
296.3. Okay,
For 13418, 13418, my recommendation is 193,500. For parcel 13435, my recommendation is 279,500. And for parcel 13436, my recommendation is 201,300. For parcel 13437, I'm recommending no change. And for parcel 19363, I'm recommending 97,900.
thank you, Joe. Questions, Commissioner?
Madam Chair. Joe, just real brief. So the recommended changes were based on,
Being on the property, looking at the soil, looking at the slopes, and considering the areas of the land that is too steep to put a tractor on.
we were
or-
looking at a topography map the other day, and so we looked at those contours, and we just,
Yeah, based on the contours and what I saw while I was on the property.
Brian, I got a little education on appraising or how this egg land, that's not my expertise, but this soil class and capability subclass sheet, it's my understanding, Joe, the Kyle soil is really, really good pasture, but not that good of cropland. It's right there in the middle.
It's right there in the middle, and the Department of Revenue has classified it as crop rated.
Right. So,
It could
Brian,
go the other way.
I don't know that the county could legally do what I think you're suggesting, to call this pasture land opposed to cropland. And if we did do that, I'm afraid we would have to do it to the entire county, which I think, to keep everything equal, and I think that would be a big step. So I'm glad that Joel could find some common ground and look at the topography and stuff, because, I mean, that is something that we legally have the potential to do.
Can I make a comment to that,
Absolutely.
Mr. Commissioner Roskinick? I think Commissioner DeSanto said it too. Whether you're legally allowed to do it or not, I believe what's happening is we're picking one of the 6 characteristics of South Dakota codified law to base this determination on, and forgetting about the 4 or 5 others. I don't know if the state's attorney's here, but I'd ask if there was a recommendation, because I believe legally, if you follow the law, we're using 1 out of 5. And this has been rangeland, always will be, because it has a slightly higher crop productivity rating is the only thing driving that into that category. And it certainly is one, but size, location, terrain, topography, from Pat and I's standpoint, we have debt on our farmland. If we go in and start farming this, and then NRCS comes out and this topsoil ends up in the draw, we lose our ability to participate in farm programs. It jeopardizes our farming operation. If we would go do this one, it'd be economically infeasible, but it could cost us our participation with the federal farm programs, all of those things. It's just not smart. But from a legal standpoint, I believe if you look at South Dakota Codified Law 10-6-3331 and 32, legally you are allowed to use other considerations besides soil type.
Madam Chair, can we get Jay in
Commissioner,
here?
what, what's that?
Can we get Jay in here?
I think Shannon knows it.
Okay. Also, I have another comment to make. I am not in disagreement at all with your assessment of that Kyle loam soil. I attended a seminar that Matt Auden spoke at, and he went over different types of soil, and I understand where you're coming from on that. I understand where you're coming from. I also understand where NRCS is coming from when they tell you, don't mess with it, don't graze it, but don't plant in it. And so if you're going to be penalized and thrown out of certain programs if you don't listen to NRCS on their recommendation of how you use your land, to me, that's substantially, even though the law says that this land is crop production land, but if you lose your ability to use that land and get certain benefits for that land, if you don't do what you're told, then that, to me, reduces the value of the land. Because the next guy that comes along, if you want to look at it as just a way, the thought process that what if they sell one day, they're not going to be able to sell that property for as much as they would be able to if it wasn't that Kyle loam. Because any future rancher, farmer, is going to understand that they're not going to have the option of farming that supposedly farmable soil. So that's just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Shannon?
So I'd like to respond to the legal question,
10-33-31, if I'm correct.
which is the factors
32.
that we should consider. So the law's been developed over a lot of years. And part of it is the county assessor shall consider this stuff. For many, many years, South Dakota has used the Soil Conservation Service soil survey to adjust for all of these factors, slope, even rainfall, rocks. All of that is found in the definition of each of these soil types. If you read these soil types, this soil is usually found here. It usually has rocks or it doesn't, and whatever. We get that from the Soil Conservation Service, and then the Soil Conservation Service applies a rating to the quality and rates those soils from best to worst for Pennington County. If we were to make an adjustment to this property for some of these other factors, we would be doubling up on the adjustment only on this property, and every other place in the county where that soil is found would be different. The recommendation Joe has made here is where there's something about this parcel, and that whether it's that soil or not, that parcel, that land out there, there's something about it that's not accounted for already that is different than that dirt everywhere else in the county. So we recommend an adjustment. Yes, we can consider all of these things, but they are considered in the soil survey. And we don't want to adjust the dirt on this place any different than it would be found anywhere else.
Brian?
Okay, yeah. If you read South Dakota Codified Law, and I'm not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing with Shannon, but what it says is, in determining the capacity to produce, the county director of equalization and the county board of equalization shall consider yields comma, the extent to which the land is to be tilled or non-tilled based upon soil type, terrain, topography, surface conditions, animal carrying capacity as determined by the Natural Resources Conservation Service, Farm Credit Services of America, FSA, the Extension Services, and private lending agencies dealing with land production capacity. So we have NRCS telling us don't farm this. We have Farm Credit Services appraising it as rangeland. We have the FSA categorizing it as rangeland, not cropland. And then we go on, the only thing we're basing the determination on is the soil type. So I think the law is being misapplied, in my opinion, because there are other factors. And what Shannon says, what happens with everybody else, I guess they need to go research this like we did. Pat, do you have a comment?
The only thing I wanted to say, commissioners, is I understand there's a lot of land in the county and it's hard. But Commissioner, you're right. The same soil is not the same on every piece of ground. This soil in eastern South Dakota in sections is a lot less, I shouldn't say less quality, a lot more quality because it's there, because you got a little strip of it running through here. And I know Shannon and I visited about, the state's constantly looking at it. You're all aware that the Black Hills is sometimes a sore spot with the rest of the state, but soils vary within our state. And this is a real problem on our place. And hopefully next year things will be corrected. But we're here just to point out that it doesn't make sense to charge us as a farm piece of ground that you can't farm. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, you understand 9 out of these 12 properties that he's talking about changed? Lower.
No. I just looked at it purely from the cropland versus rangeland standpoint.
I'm just saying, Joe lowered 9 out of 12 of the properties that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it was lowered 10% from a farmland valuation, and it's just not. The law basically is, hey, we're going to determine what the average cash rent income for Pennington County is for farmland, and then we're going to determine what it is for pasture. Joe, is it $8 an acre for pasture this year for rangeland?
I think that's,
It's single digits, and our taxes are 2/3 of that. So that's why I'm here. I'm not saying that they're lowering them, it's not good. It's just we don't believe that should be considered cropland based on South Dakota law.
Okay, and maybe he took some of that in consideration, but like 11972 went from 72.6 to 57.2.
Okay, excuse me, Commissioner, say that again. Okay.
So let's, you have no change on 11970. You have no change on 11971. 11972, you go from 72.6 to 57.2. 11975, you go from 11.6 to 10.8. 11976, you go from 225.2 to 216.8. Number 11996, you go from 166.3 to 146. 13415, you go from 300. I'm sorry, you're at 296,300. Parcel 13418, you went from 234.6 to 193.5. 13435, you went from 307.9 to 279.5. 13436, you went from 225.1 to 201.3. And 19363, you went from 111.5 to 97.9. So
Okay.
actually, it sounds like he was listening to you and he did drop a lot of these.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
that's
sir.
actually an average of 16.7% reductions is what he's given you on the ones that he's made changes on.
If you look at 13418, just to isolate one,
Okay, what number?
13418,
Okay?
Okay,
there's 520 acres in that parcel.
okay,
233 acres of that is assessed as cropland for 196,000. The other 280 acres is considered pasture with a $40,000 value. So the reductions help, but in the whole scheme of things, they're still, I'd have to do the math, 75% higher than if it was considered rangeland. So we appreciate the fact that Joe made some adjustments down. We just think fundamentally calling this cropland is wrong based on the law.
Joe, can you back up what you're saying today? By how you adjusted and how you did your
What I want to
calculations?
say is again that the South Dakota legislature has legislated how agricultural land is to be assessed and valued in the counties in South Dakota and in Pennington County. We follow that legislation, those recommendations from the Department of Revenue to the best of our ability to be exactly doing what they want us to do.
Okay. Or do we
Madam
have
Chair.
any? Commissioner Drews.
Brian and Pat, and actually address Mr. Jordan on this also. I personally don't disagree with what you're saying relative to that quite possibly the laws are not particularly favorable to this area. But that's not an argument that you really have with us. That's an argument that you really have with the legislature. I do believe that our equalization office is following the legal recommendations that they're provided in reading the laws and following them and their recommendations to us. So it's not that I disagree with what you're saying personally, but at the same time, I think that, I've got the confidence in our equalization office that they're providing us the correct information and the best information that they have. So.
Would it be, and look, we've presented our case, you have to make a decision. Would it be out of line for us to ask the Pennington County State's Attorney for an opinion on the actual law?
Well, the thing
I
that
think you
you can
probably
do
have it
next
already.
is if we make a decision, you also can take this to state, and that would probably be your best appeal to me, and then bring forth, if you want to get a hold of our state's attorney for that and see what his opinion on it for when you go to state, Brian, I think you'll have a little bit more of a chance.
Brian,
I'm gonna be up straight with you, Brian.
might I also suggest that taking this before the legislature, I think that one of the main focuses that our East or our West River ranchers and farmers need to have a legislator focus upon is the difference between East River and West River, and that we need a separate set of laws and rules for West River. They work it that way in other areas of the country that I've lived in. I'm from South Dakota, but lived in Washington State for many years, and they, in many different counties, they have different, because you got the Columbia River running through Washington State, and so it's kind of similar to South Dakota, where one side produces beautifully and the other side doesn't produce worth a darn. So I would suggest that you do bring this before the legislature, because it's constantly an issue, and see if we can't get some agreement to make the rules equitable for West River.
Thank you.
Very
It may, most of you may be too young to remember this. Pat's not. Pat's old enough to remember this. But the short grass legislation that's been proposed over the years and fought at the legislative level for years and years, has never come out real favorable to the western side of the state. And obviously, it's just because the numbers don't stack up out here as far as how many representatives and senators we have out here as compared to East River. So it's just been a major battle for years.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept Joe's recommendations
Motion to approve?
with,
Is there a second?
with the reductions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by DeSanto. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Good presentation, Brian.
Are we, the stip list, guys? pre-registered list for 2019.
Okay, so there's a bunch of properties on this list, and I'll briefly explain what it is. When a mobile home moves, the taxes have to be paid in advance to get a moving permit to move it. We're scared that the trailer house is going to leave the county and we won't collect taxes on it, so we collect taxes in advance when the trailer house moves. That's happened with these mobile homes. And to avoid mailing out a tax bill next January, we bring this to the board now and ask that you remove the value of these parcels. The ones that happen after this point, we have to deal with an abatement next year. That's some of the abatements I bring to the board.
Tell me what that motion needs to be, Shannon.
Move to reduce the value on all these parcels by the number indicated.
Is there a motion?
Remove the value from the assessment roll.
So move.
Moved by Ross Connect,
Second?
second by Drews. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And that's it.
Equalization, we'd like to thank all you guys in your office. Shannon, you, I think we had a really good discussion on our equalization, and thank you for all your time and everybody doing such a great job. And
Yeah,
thank you.
commissioners, I enjoyed the questions and learning a lot more than I have in a long time on some of the stuff that we talked about today, so.
And I think that frankly, you guys get just as frustrated and probably see the argument by these ranchers as much as we do, but you're tied, your hands are tied. There's not
that's
a whole
right.
lot you can do about it.
If we would have done what Brian was asking, we would essentially be taking and changing that soil type. That's what he was asking, I believe.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Cropland to pasture land.
Yep. That point has been a bill before the legislature every year to do that since this productivity assessment, and it's failed every single year. We think there's going to be some changes to where they go with most probable use, and it's going to change a lot of this West River stuff.
Or actual use.
Well, it ain't going to be actual use. They're going to call it most probable use, which is going most of the way.
Common sense.
Yes.
Going out and looking at the land saying, man, this is pasture, not.
Well, I don't know if they go out and look at the land, but they did something. They looked at something. We see it coming, and we're going to be a test site on, okay, this is what we're planning. How is it going to change assessments? And we're going to report that for Pennington County. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to see some of the changes. Now, there's still going to be some of these people that disagree with some aspect of the formula or parts of it. But at least this non-crop thing is not going to go away entirely, but it's going to help.
Well, as that progresses, I would suggest that the news media try to understand that we're trying to address this problem, because I think Pat and Brian had the same issue that, what was his name? Jordan.
In part, John Jordan had some other arguments, but they shared that one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the first time every single year we deal with property owners the same way. Yes, we get it. And within the office, we have varying degrees of whether we agree or not. We still have the same law to follow.
Right.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn,
So move.
moved by Drews,
Second?
second by DeSanto. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.